Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Keese School program. I just remind you to turn off your phones or other devices before we begin. My name is Rhoda McKenzie. I'm a member of the Keese School Curriculum Committee and the host for tonight's program. Our speaker is an Asbury resident who is very familiar to many of us. We often see him when we go walking around the ponds, and he always has his camera and binoculars, and he takes wonderful pictures of birds. He's done 2 programs for us already on the birds of Asbury, and I think he's going to tell us how many birds he's identified here. It keeps going up. This time, he's going to do something different. He's going to tell us about the birds of Central America with photos from birding vacations in Belize, Costa Rica, Panama, and Trinidad and Tobago. Dan is a physicist. He works at the National Institute of Standards and Technology here in Gaithersburg. So let's welcome Dan Newman.
Well, welcome. I'm very happy to be here tonight. It's great to see so many people here at Asbury interested in nature. I'm going to tell you a little about Central American birds. Rhoda's been after me to do this program for a while. She's twisted my arm quite a bit. And I really want to thank her for that because it was a real joy to put the slides together, remembering past experiences and good experiences of birding. And the only problem really was that I made way too many slides. So hopefully I got rid of enough of them. They're still in the file, but hopefully I got rid of enough of them that we'll get done in a reasonable amount of time. So she mentioned this. We're going to go through several birding vacations. The first trip I want to mention is we went to Belize in 2014. And people ask me when I really started birding. This is probably it. This is the first time I went on a trip intending to bird extensively and with a target list, what birds I wanted to see. Okay, so you could say that was the start of my birding time. And then we've been to Costa Rica twice on the Osa Peninsula and then more in the central area at Arenal, Monteverde, et cetera. And then probably my favorite birding vacation was in Panama. So Rhoda says I've seen a lot of birds on campus. I've seen 132 species here at Asbury. In Panama, in 10 days, I saw 260. So you can see there's a lot of birds in Central America. And then this isn't really Central America. You know, it's more South American birds, but there's a few birds we saw there that I couldn't resist putting in. So I wanted to mention, going to Trinidad and Tobago as well, and there's a few pictures in there. Now I have a letter B, C, P, T, and they'll be on the slides. Those letters will be by the name of the bird, and that tells you which of those locations I took the picture in. So you can follow along with that. And then the slides, often they'll tell you the family, how many species are in the family, what they eat, where they live, where the whole family lives, and then it'll give you the name and the country. So my first bird tonight is one of my favorites. It's a northern potu. So this is a relatively unusual bird. So we were in Belize, and we're eating dinner. And the manager comes and says, do you want to do a night trip? And we're not really big on night trips, you know. It's a bunch of people running around in the dark with flashlights, and you might find a tarantula. So we never were very big on these. It's always better to get up in the morning and see birds, first thing in the morning. So we said, not really. What are you going to do? She goes, well, this is what we're going to go look for potus. What's a potu? It's a night bird that eats insects. So it has a really big mouth like a nightjar, and it just flies around and eats insects. And we'll get in the truck. Us and another couple went. We got in the back of the truck, and the 2 guides were in the front. They're driving along. We're shining our flashlights at the fence posts, seeing if we could see it. Janet spots the eye shine from this bird. And so we stop. We get out. We go up to it. I don't know if Janet or I took this photo, actually, but we took it with a phone. Okay, we were very close to this bird. And so we're really excited. Oh, this is so cool. You know, the bird's sitting there really still, completely convinced we can't see him because he looks just like the post he's standing on. And so one of the guides says, well, do you want to pet it? This is true. So we walked down the road a little bit, climbed through the fence, because it's a barbed wire fence. Climbed through the fence, went around, looped around behind him, and we both petted the bird. So the other couple then decided they would come and pet the bird. One of them tripped, made a lot of noise, and the bird flew off. But this is a great bird. And we've seen these birds other places too. The common potu, which used to be the same species, but they've split that into two. We took that photo in Tobago. And then we saw the great potu in Panama. So, you know, it's really good going with guides. You know, they're not only showing you the birds, they're hearing what the other guides are seeing. And so our guide got a call and says, that we saw, the other guide reported a great potu in this place. Would you like to see it? We go, yeah, we want to see it. He goes, we're going there tomorrow to this location. We'll have to drive out of our way to get there. We're going there tomorrow, but do you still want to go? And we go, yeah. So we drove there, saw the potu. When we got there the next morning, we saw the potu. Okay. My next bird is an oil bird. So this bird gets its name from the fact that the chicks were boiled down for oil in the early days. So this is not so nice. But this is a really unusual bird. This is actually a South American bird. We saw this in Trinidad. So this bird is in a cave here, right there, we see it. It's a nocturnal fruit eater. So it is the only one of two nocturnal fruit eaters in the world. You know, most of the birds that are nocturnal are eating insects or something like that, and if you eat fruit, you can eat it during the day. This one eats it at night. And it's the only one that flies. The other one is actually a flightless parrot in New Zealand. Okay, so this is the only nocturnal fruit-eating bird that flies, and it uses echolocation to find its way. And so the echolocation is actually in our audible range. So here you can hear it. Here its clicks. Now I hope it's not too loud, but I'll try to fix it if it is. Hear those clicks? So that's what it's using to navigate. The echoes from those clicks. My next bird is kind of a plain bird, and you kind of go, well, why is he showing such a, you know, there's lots of pretty birds. This is a clay-colored thrush. It is the national bird of Costa Rica, okay? And, you know, I'm always asking, you know, why did you choose this for your national bird? You know, it's you know, you have all these spectacularly beautiful birds, and you have this kind of plain thrush that's your national bird. And the answer is, it's very common. It's in all parts of the country. Everyone can see it regularly. And it's also plain colored, but it sings pretty. So, you know, good things can come in plain packages. So here's what it sounds like. This is a bird you see all the time in both in Costa Rica and Panama. Okay, you also see old friends. So this is a Baltimore Oriole. So the Baltimore Orioles are spending their winters in Central America. There's other birds that we have here that are there, and you can see them. In fact, you see them more easily there. They're fruit eaters. They come to the fruit feeders at all the lodges. So you can see this bird. Now, one thing you probably all remember about Orioles is they make this very fancy little pouch nest that hangs down, maybe 6 inches or something from the branches and stuff. Another icterids are New World blackbirds, by the way. Another icterid are oropendulas. And oropendulas, they get their name because, one, their tail is very yellow. Okay, you can kind of see it here, but it's a very yellow tail. When they fly, all you see is this bright yellow tail. The other part of the name is for its nest. Now, I didn't have any good photos of the nest that I've taken. I don't know why. But their nest is a hanging pouch nest like the Orioles, only instead of being 6 inches long, it's more like 6 feet long. And they make these in big groups because they nest communally. So you see this tree that's just covered with these 6-8 foot long bird nests hanging from it. So one of my favorite bird families are the tanagers. They're just, there's a lot of really colorful, just really beautiful birds. going on. So this one is a bay-headed tanager. This isn't a really big bird. It's maybe about the size of a tufted titmouse, but it's just, the blue on the belly, the green on the back. We have no green birds here that are truly green. And then the bay head, the reddish head, is just a spectacularly beautiful bird. So very common tanager is this blue-gray tanager. It comes to the feeders all the time. And in fact, most of the tanagers are actually canopy birds, so they would be difficult to see, but they're also fruit eaters, and they come to the fruit feeders. And so you can go out in the morning with your cup of coffee and just sit there and watch these birds come to the feeder and feed. And so this one is really common, and it's really beautiful. And so every time you I look forward to seeing this bird on every trip, because I know I'll see it and I know it'll be great. But there's lots of other colorful tanagers as well, okay? So Janet likes red, so I put a couple of red birds here. So these are, again, they're coming to the feeders, okay? These are birds that come to the feeders. You just sit there, they come and visit you. You don't have to go visit them. Here's some more tanagers. So the emerald green, again, we don't have any green birds, but that's just a spectacular bird. And then you have the golden-hooded tanager over there. So really, lots of colorful birds. I have a lot more slides of tanagers, but I figured that you didn't want to see them all, but I'll show you a few more anyway. Okay, so here's some not so colorful birds. And in fact, the one on the right, they call it a plain-colored tanager. Isn't that kind of mean? The bird it's a perfectly beautiful little bird, but it's called a plain-colored tanager. So there are also birds that are tanagers that aren't called tanagers. With all the DNA testing, birds have moved around in their families and species and genuses and all this over the years. And so these are honey creepers. And they come to the feeders as well. And you can see these beautiful birds. Those yellow legs are just spectacular, aren't they? I mean, it's just fantastic. So here's another couple tanagers. By the way, Darwin's finches in the Galapagos Island are in the tanager family too. So they're in the same family as all these birds. Anyway, the one on the left is a scarlet-thighed dagnes. There's also a blue dagnes. It has the same colors, but a very more blue than black. And I've been trying to get a photo of this bird a lot of times. Every time I seem to somehow mess it up. But I managed to get a photo this last trip to Costa Rica of the scarlet-thighed dagnes. And the one on the right is called a banana quit. And the quit is a word that comes from the Caribbean. And it means small bird, basically. So probably originally it was African origin because of the slave trade. But this bird is a banana quit, and we've been seeing this bird, trips to the Caribbean and other places for years. And so it's always special to see this bird. And of course, there are birds that are called tanagers that are cardinals. Okay, so here's a couple. So there was a genus of tanagers that migrated. Tanagers don't migrate generally, but there can be differences. Tanagers generally don't migrate, but this genus did. And the scarlet tanager we have here is in this genus. And the summer tanager, this is a bird. Summer means, for our perspective, summer means this bird is here in the summer. And every year you'll see this bird on the bird reports, scarlet tanager. Just a beautiful red bird. See it many times in Central America. The other one also migrates, hepatic tanager, but it migrates to the southwest, not to the east coast. So that's the summer tanager. Okay, so there's also finches. So when we think of finches here, what we're usually thinking of is birds that are eating seeds primarily. In fact, almost exclusively seeds, very little other things. But with all the testing, the DNA testing, it was found that the euphonias are also related to the finches. They're in the finch family. And so the euphonias are fruit eaters. This guy comes to the feeder, so you get to come and see him. He comes to see you. It's just great. Nice little bird, very colorful. So the next family of birds are the manakins. This is one of my favorite bird families in Central America. I'm going to get up to my two favorites here pretty quickly. So this bird was actually one of the target birds on my first trip to Belize. And Janet and I are sitting at breakfast, and two of the bird guides run in and say there's a red-capped manakin in the orchard. So we went out and we saw the red-capped manakin. I got some bad pictures. And then on this last trip to Costa Rica, I managed to get this much better photo of a red-capped manakin, and he's feeding on those little berries you see. And so one of the things manakins do that's unusual is they are seed feeders, they're fruit feeders, but they act like they're going to eat an insect because they're flying around and picking them off in flight, the berries. Most fruit feeders sit still and pick off the fruit. This one flies around and picks the berries from that. Another thing that manakins do that is really, really interesting, and I encourage you all to look this up online. I didn't get a movie for you, but they lek. So L-E-K is the word, lek. And this is basically a coordinated display that males put on for the females to get them to choose. And so what you'll have when the manakins lek is 4 or 5 males will be along a horizontal branch. And they will dance back and forth along the branch, and then one will fly up, and then they'll dance back and forth under him, and he'll come down, and they do this sort of really coordinated, fancy flying dance for the females, the males. So there was a location in Trinidad where they we didn't get to see it, but it's a very cool thing. The other thing they do is they don't sing to attract the females. Instead, they do wing snaps. Okay, so this is the white-collared manakin, the one on the right, doing a wing snaps. So it's a little like snapping your fingers. Okay, so that's trying to impress the females. And there's lots more manakins. Okay, these are some manakins that I've taken pictures of. Here's another couple manakins. They're little tiny birds, very little tail. So the blue-capped manakin. One of the target birds I had in Tobago was a blue-backed manakin. We went out with the guide 2 or 3 days, didn't see it. And then we had a morning where we were going to just bird around the lodge, and we actually managed to see one. I got a very, very bad picture. But in that case, the whole back is blue, and that little spot of blue on this one is red. So it's a very, very pretty little bird. Another of my favorite bird families are the trogons. The trogons are just spectacularly beautiful birds, and they're really kind of odd. They can barely stand up. Their legs are so weak, they can barely stand up. And so they don't move. Once they're on the branch, they just sit there. They can't really move very much unless they flap their wings to fly up and back. Another thing is when they land, they're going to try to put their back to any perceived danger. So because the front is very colorful and the back is not, so they try to put their back. So how do they know if anything's sneaking up on them? They actually can turn their heads 180 degrees. Okay, so they can look right behind them, no problem. So, very interesting birds. I'm going to play the song for this black-headed trogon. Okay, so here's some more trogons. When I went to the first trip to Belize, I wanted a yellow-bellied and an orange-bellied or red-bellied trogon. I didn't care what species because there's multiple ones, and I said I wanted one of each of those. I saw several, particularly of the yellow-bellied ones. One of them here is the gartered trogon. This is one of my favorite bird pictures I've ever personally taken. We have a print of this in our living room. Okay, so you know I like that photo. So the trogons are cavity nesters. So they don't look like woodpeckers, and they can't, peck a hole in a normal tree and make a nest. So some of them actually use cavities that were made by woodpeckers. Some species do that. Other species don't. They'll find a really rotten piece of wood and chew a hole in it and nest in it, or they might use a termite nest. They'll just put a hole in it, chew a hole in a termite nest and nest in that. The gartered trogon takes this to an extreme. He actually makes his nest in a wasp nest. So the pair flies in, eats a bunch of the wasps, makes a nest, keeps some around to guard their nest, and occasionally snacks on a few. But they make their nest in a wasp nest. So these are another couple ones. So when we went to Panama, we wanted to see this collared trogon with the orange belly. That was on my target list. And so we saw that when we were in Panama. Janet actually spotted the one in Panama from the back. It was up on a tree. Janet says they're easy to spot because they're always on horizontal branches. That's because they can't actually do this. They have to be on a horizontal branch to perch. So, but this one was in the Monteverde cloud forest, and we were very close to this bird. I mean, it wasn't very far away, and I was taking photos of it, and we were looking at it, and a group of tourists, a big tourist group comes through, and inevitably somebody asks, "What are you looking at?" And we say, "The trogon." And one of the guys looks up and goes, "Huh? Looks like a robin." Okay, another bird that's in the trogon family is the quetzals. Quetzals are trogons. Okay, so I didn't get any that good of photos of the quetzals when we were in Costa Rica. We did see them a couple times. So this is a beautiful male here, very long tail feathers. They grow 2 long tail feathers. The males do to attract the females, and just a beautiful bird. So the trogons don't actually migrate either. They basically stay in the same area their whole lives, except for the quetzals. The quetzals' primary food is avocados. Basically, they only eat avocados, and so they'll start at the bottom of the mountain with the avocados ripening, and then follow as they ripen up the mountain. So just to show you, these are wild avocados. Okay, they don't really look like the avocado that you're going to buy at Giant, and this is the what's inside. So there's not much meat. Most of it's a pit. You can see Janet holding it there, and they swallow that thing whole, and then they regurgitate the pit. Okay, so this is just a spectacular bird. Actually, this is the national bird of Guatemala. So but much more common in Costa Rica. Okay, I want to show you a few herons. Okay, this is a boat-billed heron. I think it's just a weird bird. The first thing you notice is that its eye is very big. It is a nocturnal bird. It's out at night. And then its beak is very big, and it uses that to actually kind of sift through the water to catch fish, anything it finds, amphibians, whatever it can find, it'll eat. And it uses this big beak to help it hunt and help it catch prey. So this is another couple of birds in the heron family. So I just wanted to say, anybody thinks they completely understand what evolution's doing, they're probably making a mistake. So the bird here on the left is a cattle egret. It's really easy to tell from the bird on the right, okay? Because a cattle egret has an orange beak and black feet, whereas a snow egret has a black beak and yellow feet. I have no idea. But they are easy to tell apart. Another heron I really like that's only in Central America is the tiger herons. They're really beautiful birds. There are 3 species. I've seen all 3. I took one of them out so you didn't have to look at them all. Anyway, so why are they called tiger herons? Well, one idea, which could be correct, is that they have these stripes, okay? But there's another possibility. When they call, they sound like a chuff call of a tiger. So here's what they sound like. Okay, my next bird is a sunbittern. This is the only bird in its family. So it's the only species in the whole family of sunbitterns, and it's a really cool little bird. You used to have them at the National Zoo. I've seen them in zoos several times. They're called sunbitterns because they have fake eyes on their wings. So if they spread their wings out and put them back to you, it looks like they're a huge animal with these eyes that are just massive, and they look like suns, apparently. So they call them sunbitterns. And a bittern is a type of heron, but these are not herons. So this bird we spotted. We were with a birding guide, and he took us to this location, and he said that that it was common to see a sunbittern in this area, but we were unsuccessful. And then we had an hour or something one day before we were headed out, because I think we were leaving that day. And so we went up there. It was very close to the lodge. We just walked up there, managed to spot it and get this picture. So very, very good. I'd only ever seen it before in zoos. Very common zoo bird. Okay. Then this is a purple gallinule. This is a bird that's famous for getting lost. Okay, this bird is a Central American bird. Actually, you can see it in southern Florida as well. But it's been in Maryland. It's been in Iceland. It's been in South Africa. It's been everywhere. And this is actually a useful trait, because this is a way that a group of birds can find and exploit a new area that's appropriate habitat. So they've been seen in Switzerland too. Anyway, okay, this is a southern lapwing. Now, we often think about birds, being disrupted, their lives being disrupted by habitat destruction and things. But that isn't always the case. Once in a while, there's a bird that thrives on habitat destruction. And one of them is the southern lapwing. Basically, it likes pastures. So it's going out in pastures all the time, eating, worms, insects, whatever. And you can actually, if you watch soccer matches from South America at night, you actually can see these birds. They kind of land on the field like pigeons here. So you can see this bird all over the place because it has adapted well to human-created landscapes. So my next bird is a motmot. So the first time we went down to Belize, blue-crowned motmot was on my list of birds. Well, in the meantime, the blue-crowned motmots have been changed into 5 different species. So the northernmost one, which this is in Belize, is called Lesson's motmot. In fact, all of them in Central America are Lesson's motmots. They used to have one of these in the flight exhibit at the National Zoo, and they would throw embryonic or small or just born mice up in the air, and it would fly out and catch it. These things eat almost everything. The other thing about them is that it's one of the birds, people have made fun of how stupid birds are for a long time, and this is one where they will use the name of this bird in Spanish as an insult for a stupid person. Okay, so that's one of the things they do. So here's a couple more motmots. A couple things I want to point out. I think I need the pointer for this one. So look at its tail. Tail feather. It has this racket thing where the feathers are missing. Okay? And for a long time, it was thought that they just chewed those off to make it look like that. And that was probably, there was some truth to that in the sense that they preen and the feathers come off, but the feathers come off really easy in that area. And so most motmot species actually have a long tail like this. They're forest birds. Long tail helps with maneuverability. And then they have this racket thing at the bottom. The one on the right there is a rufous motmot. It was on my target list for Panama. And I took this photo actually not very far from the sunbittern. So same general area. Now, this is what it sounds like. Okay. Now, cuckoos are another really strange species of bird. We've all heard of cuckoos, but there's only one family in their order. So they have no close relatives, basically, at all. Just themselves, the cuckoos. And this is a squirrel cuckoo. It gets its name, look at that tail, isn't it just fantastic? It gets its name from the fact that it actually moves through the trees like a squirrel. It kind of runs along the branches and that sort of thing. The nestlings of this species have a big, bright white spot on the roof of their mouth that maybe helps the parents find it to feed it. Who knows? It's kind of weird, sort of thing. And, they don't really sound like clocks. So this is what a squirrel cuckoo sounds like. Hopefully it'll come out. So that's a squirrel cuckoo. So there are more species of tyrant flycatchers than any other bird family in the world, okay? And this is a typical looking flycatcher. There's lots of birds that are similar color scheme to this with the yellow belly, some brown or gray on the back and head, and this is a very common color scheme for the flycatchers. This one's called a tropical kingbird. This may be the most common bird we see on birding trips. It is everywhere. The birding guides refer to them as TKs generally, so you don't have very, they don't want to spend too much time saying tropical kingbird. Instead, they just call them TKs. One of our birding guides said he had a group from the UK who was interested in seeing as many birds species as possible, and pretty much that was all. And they referred to them as TWs for time wasted. Here's another couple of flycatchers, same sort of scheme. These are in the same genus as our great crested flycatcher that nests here in the summer. And I'm glad I don't have to tell particularly the one on the right apart from it. All the species in this genus look the same, but you can see the general color motif for the flycatchers with the yellow belly and brown and gray heads and backs. And they're all sizes. Those are relatively large. So these are just tiny birds, okay? Tyrannulates, greenlets are all in the flycatcher family, just small birds with the same color scheme. Of course, not all have the same color scheme. There's various color schemes here, but I wanted to bring your attention to this long-tailed tyrant. So this is a tiny little bird with a ridiculously long tail, okay? And we spotted this bird when we were out hiking by Arenal in Costa Rica, and we'd seen it in Panama and we knew what it was. And so I was able to get this nice photo. So there are other flycatchers that also have ridiculously long tails, okay? So here's a couple that are really just beautiful, spectacular birds. This one, the one on the right, I couldn't even get all of its tail in the picture. So the fork-tailed flycatcher. The scissor-tailed flycatcher is farther north. In fact, very southern Texas, you can see these birds. I took both of these photos in Belize in a farming area that the Mennonites run, and you can see they're all sitting on the barbed wire because they're going to fly out and catch insects. And of course, the long tail helps with maneuverability, but the tails are a lot longer on the males than the females, so they also have a mating function in terms of being attractive. So my last flycatcher is perhaps Janet's favorite bird. It's a vermilion flycatcher. And it's just a small little flycatcher, and it's just this bright red, just beautiful. Janet actually spotted this bird in Belize and was able to get photos of it. So just a beautiful little bird. One of the strangest families of birds are the cotingas. Cotingas have some of the most colorful birds known. Unfortunately, I haven't seen any of them. Some of you have seen nature shows with cock of the rock birds, bright orange. Those are all cotingas. And there's also birds that make some of the weirdest noises and loudest noises. Some of the loudest birds are cotingas. So it's very interesting. The bird on the right is a fruit crow. It sounds kind of boring. This bird actually lives in colonies, raises its young communally. So the parents aren't just feeding their own chicks, they're feeding all the chicks. So all the parents are feeding all the chicks in the colony. So it's a very unusual behavior for birds or any animal for that matter. The bird on the left is a bearded bellbird. And you can see the beard, the wattles hanging down is very strange. And it makes a sound kind of like a bell. So we'll see if we'll play it for you. Okay, so that bird we could hear all over when we were in Trinidad. You could hear it from a really long distance. So one of the newer bird families is the Titiras. So this bird family was, again, one of the families that was made based on DNA testing. And so it turned out there were birds in a bunch of other families that they pulled together into this family based on DNA. And most of them came were tyrant flycatchers or cotingas. A few were even manakins. Okay, so very wide range of birds, and they are all in this family. They're, just to show you, they're roughly the size of a cardinal, just to give you some idea how they are. And they are a bird that's easy to see at the lodges because they are edge birds, so they live on the edge of the forest, and so you can see them pretty easily. I really like the cinnamon bocard. That color is really nice. So the next bird is an ant shrike. It's ant birds. Army ants are the exterminators of Central America. Most of the people, what they'll do, the people that they can't afford an exterminator, and their house will get termites and all kinds of insects and mice and creatures and stuff in it, because it's a very, good habitat. And so every couple years, it turns out the army ants will march through, take over the house for a couple days, eat everything that's inside, and then leave. So you just have to, when the army ants come, you go to your neighbor's house or your family's house for a couple of days. They take care of all the bugs and all the pests, and then you can move back in. Anyway, so of course, all the bugs and all these creatures are trying to get away from the army ants. And so there's birds that specialize in following the army ants around, not to eat the army ants, but rather to eat all the things that are fleeing the army ants. Okay, and this is a female barred ant shrike, a very nice bird. Most of these birds are kind of hard to see because they live near the forest floor, but not on it. So they're in dense brush, kind of 3 or 4 feet above the forest floor. And here's a couple of ant wrens. There's a lot of different ones that follow the army ants around and eat the insects fleeing. And it's not just the ant birds. There are other species that do this. So if there's a lot of birds following them around, there's going to be something to eat the birds. And this is a semi-plumbous hawk, and they specialize in following the army ants around to eat the ant birds. Okay, so this bird is just going to follow them around and prey on the ant birds. I think it's a really kind of handsome hawk. Orange feet. Here's a couple more nice hawks. So the one on the left is called a crane hawk, and it gets its name because its feet, its legs, are very long. So what it uses them for is to reach into tree cavities and grab things inside to eat them. Okay, so very long legs, and so this right here is its foot. That's one of it's standing on one foot, and that's its other foot. The bird on the right is another just spectacular raptor called a white hawk. So we were out birding one day with the guide and one other person, and we're driving back in the front. We're in the canal zone. We're staying in the canal zone, former canal zone when we were there, and we'd have to drive up the hill to where we were staying, which is a former radar installation, U.S. radar installation, that they converted into a birding lodge. Anyway, we're going to drive up there, and we're done for the day. But the birding guide, the other guy hopped in the front, and we're in the back of the truck. And he says, if you see anything interesting, just pound on the cab. So we're getting really close to the lodge, going up the hill to the lodge, and we see this white hawk. Luckily, I knew what it was. And so we pounded, white hawk, white hawk. It was very close to us, just beautiful bird. Was able to get this nice photo of it. Just a spectacular bird. So here's another couple birds. I hope some of you are watching the Americas, the nature show that's being shown on NBC. Very, very beautiful, nice, very interesting series, narrated by Tom Hanks. Anyway, one of the birds they showed was this snail kite. So snail kites have a really sharply curved beak, and this is so they can rip the snail out of its shell. Okay, and they show it doing that in this series, so you can see that. So that's specialized to feed on apple snails primarily. The one on the right is a very unusual bird. So we were on one of these hikes that you pay for, and they have bridges up in the canopy that cross the canyons and stuff in Costa Rica, so people can go out and walk. And we ran into two couples from Tennessee, and the women were both serious birders, okay? So one of them managed to spot this bird. This bird was a very, very long ways away, and she managed to spot it. We couldn't tell what it was with our binoculars. That's how far it was. And so one of the two had a birding guide. I was able to take this picture. I tried a lot of times. Most of them were blurred. I was able to take this picture, and we were able to identify the bird based on the photograph. And it was pretty hard because it's actually a juvenile ornate hawk eagle. It's not an adult. So it took us quite a while to figure that out. But it's just a spectacularly beautiful bird. I think you all saw this because this was the photo for the for advertising this talk. There are a lot of other raptors. This is they're falcons. This is a crested caracara. They're in the falcon family, but they are relatively large. This is about the size of a red-tailed hawk, and caracaras are mostly scavengers. So they're eating carrion along the road and stuff like that. So this is a relatively easy bird to see. But there are other cool falcons that are more normal falcon size. So the one on the left is a bat falcon, and it looks a lot like a bat when it flies. It kind of does that sort of thing, and that's how it gets its name. Although bats and birds are its favorite prey, and it's most active at dawn and dusk. The one on the right is a laughing falcon. Its favorite food is snakes. So it likes to eat snakes, and it will eat coral snakes, it will eat rattlesnakes, it will eat any snake. Okay, doesn't matter if it's poisonous or not, it will eat it. Okay, so that's a couple just beautiful little falcons. And then there are owls. So this is a pygmy owl, a very small owl. And this bird is one that the guides like to mimic. And the reason is it's a very, very simple song, just one note, toot, toot, toot. And all the little birds will come and try to mob it when they hear this. So they'll do this call to attract birds to where you are, just trying to mimic the owl. And one of the guides once told me, he goes, maybe they just want to see Johnny get eaten, who knows? Anyway, I'll try to see. This one is very quiet, so I may have to turn it up a little bit. You hear the teet, 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 teet? That's it. Anyway, and we've seen other owls as well. The spectacled owl. The black and white owl, going with the guide is always good. So one of a different guide spotted this bird and told our guide about it. And our guide says, oh, I know how to get closer. And so we ran down the trail, ran up the next trail up, and we were very close to this beautiful black and white owl on our last trip to Costa Rica. I think this is probably Janet's favorite bird from that trip. So there's lots of hummingbirds. There's 366 species of hummingbirds. Most of them are neotropics. Okay, so we only have one here. It's in the neotropics, et cetera. But it is the rufous-tailed hummingbird. It is a very common hummingbird. You see it at all the lodges, all the feeders. So here's some more hummingbirds. There's a lot of them. We managed to spot this scaly-breasted hummingbird on one of our hikes, the same one we saw, the long-tailed tyrant, sitting on its nest. So that bird is actually sitting on a nest in this little tree. Why? It's always good to go with the guide, again, because up on the left, look at the beak on that hummingbird. Okay, so that beak is designed to eat feed on heliconia. So basically that's what it feeds on. And our guide says, hey, are you interested in seeing the sickle-bill woodpecker? And I said, yeah, sure. So we walked actually probably half a mile on a road through an open area to get to these heliconias where he knew this guy was feeding. We're almost there, and something buzzes by us going the other direction. He goes, that was it. and he saw where it landed. It landed in this dense thicket down below the road. You know, the road was kind of above the one on one side. It was on the side hill. And he found it. And I was able to get this picture. Not a great picture, but I was still able to get it. And of course, there's more and more hummingbirds. You can never have too many hummingbirds. Okay, so this is another weird bird family. This is the puff birds. So they puff their feathers out. That's how they get their name. This is another bird. Basically, it just sits there. It doesn't do very much. It just waits until it has a good opportunity to eat an insect or something flying by and flies out and gets it. So this is another bird that they use for stupid bird. You know, stupid people. The Spanish name is used for stupid people. Here's a very closely related bird to that. It's a jacamar. It's a really cool bird. I mean, this was on my target list when we went to Tobago. One of the main reasons I went to Tobago is to see this bird. But I got a lot better pictures of it in Costa Rica. So it's the same sort of deal. It sits there, flies out, catches insects. It's got a really nice, cool, long tail, a really weird beak. It's not a very big bird, but it's not tiny either. So it's really, it's very, opalescence is very cool too. So this is a cinnamon woodpecker. So a cinnamon woodpecker was actually a target bird for me when we went to Panama. And I said we were staying at this former radar installation. And so it's way up on top of the hill, and then it's several stories tall. And you can go up on top to bird, and you're right at the canopy. You can also see the ships in the Panama Canal coming out of the Culebra Cut. But anyway, this bird, I managed to see that when I was up on top of that tower. So here's another couple woodpeckers. The black cheek is closely related to same genus as our red-bellied woodpecker. So a nice woodpecker. And I really like the beak on that pale-billed woodpecker. The red head with the yellow eye and the white beak is just really cool. So many of you here, I presume, actually get my bird update emails, and you know that I like creepers. The ones we have here are called tree creepers. It's a Eurasian species, a Eurasian family, not a Western Hemisphere family. But the wood creepers in Central America are much larger, more cardinal size, instead of smaller than a chickadee, more cardinal size, and but they feed the same way. They go up the trunk looking for things to eat. And so wood creepers have been on my target list many times. I really like these birds. So here's a couple more. Here's a cocoa wood creeper. You notice it has a lizard. Okay, and then there's the other one's a streak-headed woodpecker. It's a really cool little woodpecker, wood creeper, but they look the same, so I'm really glad I have guides to help me figure out which is which. So now I want to go to the toucans. So this is this collared aracari or collared aracari comes to the feeders. So you're guaranteed to see this bird if you're in an eco lodge with a bird feeder. And you can see it's got really nice red on its rump. You know, it's a red in the back and colored in the front. Okay, this is the keel-billed woodpecker. It is a keel-billed toucan. It is the Fruit Loops bird, essentially. So you can see this bird, but usually we hear it first. So I want to play you what this bird sounds like. You know, spectacularly, isn't that beak just too weird? So it sounds a bit like a frog. But it's easy to hear that and know where and find the toucans. Here's a yellow-throated toucan. Now, why is it called a yellow-throated toucan? I don't know. The other one had a yellow throat too, didn't it? Yeah, sure did. Okay, so this is a yellow-throated toucan. It used to be called a chestnut-mandibled toucan, and now they changed its name to yellow-throated. And I read why, but it didn't make much sense to me. So, but it's another spectacular, weird bird. And then there's smaller toucans called toucanettes. And so here's a couple of them. So that you can just sometimes come to the feeder, but we saw both of these in the forest. So, we were out about to see them. So my last bird family tonight are parrots. So if there's any one family of birds that got me really interested in birds, it's parrots. And I still really like seeing them, really like seeing them around. So this is a white crowned parrot, and birds in its genus called Penis are the first known birds that were ever domesticated, used for pets. So this is a bird used to pets. They're stolen out of the trees, out of nests, and handled so that people can they'll behave themselves when, let me see if I can get that, okay. They will get them out of the trees when they're very young, and handle them so that they'll actually be docile and tamed and don't mind being handled. So lots of these chicks from these sorts of birds in this genus are actually stolen for the pet trade. So it's really a sad thing. Here's a couple of parrots. These are Amazon parrots. So the one here, the Red Lord parrot, is very short, very small. One thing I want you to notice is the tails on these birds. They're pretty short, and they're kind of squared off in the back. Okay, here's a couple of parakeets. Olive-throated parakeet, orange chin parakeet. I really like the orange chin parakeet. So how do you know the difference between a parrot and a parakeet? Well, first of all, parakeets are parrots. Okay, that's the thing. But people usually will say, well, parakeets are small. That's actually true. Okay, parakeets are small, but the real distinguishing factor is not the size, although parakeets have to be small, it's the tail. Look at that tail. Long, skinny, pointed, that's a parakeet. Okay, so you can tell them apart pretty easy. And my last bird tonight is scarlet macaw. And this was in Costa Rica on the Osa Peninsula, and we were staying at this eco lodge, and the owner had somehow trained this pair of wild scarlet macaws to come in and eat sunflower seeds and butter, believe it or not, on his deck. And so they just come in every so often and eat. And we took this picture with our phone as well. So this lodge knew you would see scarlet macaws. Their advertising was, your visit is free, your stay is free if you don't see a scarlet macaw. So just the spectacular birds, and very great treat to be so close to these wild birds that were kind of half tame, because they would come in and eat the birds. And with that, I want to thank everybody for coming. I really enjoyed being here again and showing you some of the birds I've enjoyed in Central America. If you want to see some birds here at Asbury, the bird walk is going to be on Saturday, April 19th. It's hard for me to believe that the 9:15 a.m. time is much more popular than the 7:30. Anyway, so I'd have to limit the number of people on these trips, on these bird walks. So please, make a reservation with Janet so we can have a reasonable number on the walks here. So with that, again, thank you all for coming. Thanks for your interest in birds. Yeah, I have time for a few questions. Yeah, I will.
How long does it take that 6-foot tall nest to be built, and how do they do it?
Oh, well, they weave the grasses and sticks together. It's a woven thing, just like an oriole nest. I mean, it's made the same way. I have no idea how long it takes, though. My guess is 2 or 3 weeks. They'll spend quite a bit of time on it, is my guess.
Dan, I'm wondering what the relative health of these bird populations is, and of the places you visit, where are they most endangered and what's being done to preserve them?
Okay, so the birds I showed are mostly birds you can see. In other words, they're not in terrible shape. But all of these areas, the bird population is decreasing due to habitat loss. The country that does the most to maintain its habitat is Costa Rica. Okay, they really work to try and maintain a bird habitat that keep the ecotourism dollars coming. So, but, you know, these are really pretty common birds that I showed you tonight.
I have a question about parrots and macaws, and this is a trivial question. Do you know, are either one of them better at speaking, imitating sounds and things like that?
Yeah, so there are some that are really renowned for being able to speak, like African greys are renowned for being able to speak. A lot of the small birds that you would get, you know, that are bred in captivity are not very good at speaking, generally. So, you know, it varies a lot. You know, individuals vary a lot as with everything, but there's a couple like the African gray that are renowned for being able to speak.
Could you comment on the spectacular bright colors? Is it a function of food that they eat? Is it camouflage? It cannot be camouflage because some of them colors are so bright and so well defined that it would be actually attractive to the predator. So what is it?
So many of the birds, the females are not nearly as bright. Okay, I should almost every picture I showed you was of a male tonight. So the females tend to be not as bright. Let's see here. It'd take me too long to find one, but they're generally duller than the males, and so they would be able to blend in a bit more. So the color is almost certainly completely associated with nesting behavior.
Does the food have much to do with it?
So the answer is I don't know in any of the particular birds. I mean, you know, there are birds here that the food matters, like the house finches. You know, the red comes from their food, but I don't know if any of these birds. They don't all. You know, there are not a lot of them that have a wide variation in color.
Okay. I was impressed with the slide where they had birds to eat up the insects. They locked them there for several days. In America, we probably would have sprayed the daylights out of the bugs. Are they more sensible with the use of insecticide sprays? And is their bird population on the decline like ours is?
So the bird populations around the world are in steep decline. This is known. This is a problem. There's a lot of birds. The birds' populations are declining steeply. In this case, this is the culture, right? What you have is people have grown used to this fact that the army ants are going to come in and be the exterminator for your house, and they're okay with that for a couple days. They've gotten used to this. Every 2 or 3 years, they'll show up on whatever schedule the ants are on, not on your schedule, and they will rid your house of all the pests. And so that's just the culture of how they deal with this problem in these more outskirts. I presume it's not this way in the main cities, but on the you know, where the eco lodges are outside of town in the middle of you know, middle of kind of nowhere, you know, just small villages and stuff. They are used to dealing with it this way, and so that's how they do it.
Much of the coloring in these birds is obviously inherited.
Yeah.
But in the wonderful tricolored beak of that toucan, is that pattern carried through from bird to bird? Or
Yeah,
does
it's
it vary?
pretty reproduced. I mean, it's a little different, but I don't think most people think they can tell the difference between individual birds based on their beak, individual toucans based on the beak. But they are different. They do vary some, so maybe some people can.
Any more questions? Oh, I'm sorry.
Did your guides tell you with the putus that, like, for instance, the one you had that was on the post,
that the female will lay her egg right there on that post and raise that chick there?
Yep. Yeah, so they like posts that are a little hollow for that reason. Let me see if I'll blow this up, make it bigger. So the one here on the left, you can see that's actually bamboo that it's sitting on.
Right.
Okay, so it's a hollow thing so that they might be able to make a nest in that, and that's normal behavior for at least that potu. The common potu or northern potu are very closely related. So
Yeah, I have one with a chick right in front of her, and you can barely see it. It's so camouflaged into her.
That's it. Another question? Thanks a lot, everybody, for coming.